This right here is the best raid XP farm in Minecraft. It will give you a ton of valuable raid items like Totems of Undying, plus you'll make a bunch of levels too. The farm is super easy to build with only these simple materials here, and the best thing is, unlike most other raid farms, this one also keeps you safe from those annoying VEX attacks. So, let's check out how to build it. But okay, first things first, for raid farms, unlike most other mob farms in the game, it is very important that you position them exactly in the right way. To be more precise, a raid farm needs to be built over a large body of water where you have at least 128 blocks of ocean in every direction. To find the right position, my personal recommendation would be to just go out onto the ocean with your boat and then set your render distance to 8 chunks in the options menu. This is exactly 128 blocks. If you then take a look around and you don't see any landmass anymore, that means you're safe to build here. However though, before we start building, here's one more tip that will save you a lot of time later. As part of this farm, we will need one villager. So ideally, before you even go out on the ocean, look for a village and trap one villager in your boat. This way you can already bring him with you and don't need to go back all the way later. But alright, once we've arrived at our destination together with the villager, here is the first thing you want to do. Build a little temporary platform out of dirt blocks or literally anything else, and then pull the boat with the villager on top of that platform. This is a very important safety measure because if you just leave the villager in the boat on the open water, it might be that he gets attacked by drowned enemies. Also, maybe place down a torch next to the boat to prevent mobs from spawning there. But okay, time to start building the actual farm. But for the first step, it is very important that you follow this video exactly step by step, because otherwise the farm might end up not working at all. Let me explain. For this farm to work properly, you want to make sure to keep the entire farm within just one chunk. How do you do that? Well, you can display the chunk borders on your screen by pressing the key combination of F3 plus G. Now you can see exactly where you stand and where the outlines of your current chunk are. And as always, if you could leave a quick like for the video, that would be really nice because it helps me big time with the YouTube algorithm and getting these guides out to more people. So thank you so much for your support. To now start building the farm, what you want to do is look at this line right here in your F3 overlay. This shows you in which direction you're facing, north, south, east, or west. You want to look into the north direction and move close to this north border of your chunk. In this position, you now want to start building the base platform that we're later going to be standing on. How big exactly you make it, that's up to you, but I personally prefer to keep it relatively small, like maybe 6 by 6 or 7 by 7. Only important thing is that you keep the entire platform within the chunk that you're standing. Okay, with our base platform done, it is time to work on our loot collection system. And also here, I like to do it a little bit different than for most other farms. See, given the fact that raid farms drop a lot of items that don't really stack, that means we need a bit more inventory space than usual. That is why we're actually going to go and place down 4 chests in a pattern like you see in the background right here. Then you're going to take 4 hoppers and position them in a way that each hopper is pointing into one of the 4 chests. On top of those hoppers then, we want to place campfires. This is so that we can later either take out the mobs with our sword, or we can also turn them on and let the fire do the work for us. For the time being though, we're going to take a shovel to put the fire out. Once that is done, another important step that you don't do with other mob farms is that we now need to spawn-proof this entire bottom platform that we stand on. You could use buttons, carpets, or trapdoors, whatever you see fit. Up next, we want to build our fall pit. To be more precise, around the 4 campfire blocks, we now want to build a tower that is 26 blocks high. This way, the raid mobs will take a lot of damage and be very easy to take out later. However, now comes the most important part of the entire farm, so please listen up closely and follow it step by step because otherwise it's not gonna work. When you stand on top of the tower, you want to open your F3 menu again and make sure that you're facing in the south direction. Into this direction, you now want to build a 6x4 platform against this tower. After that, at the drop tower again, you want to place down 2 trapdoors like I show here, so that the enemies can actually pathfind into the hole. Now, up next, to make sure that all the enemies that spawn on top of this platform here don't accidentally fall off the side, we're now going to build a ring of blocks all around the whole thing. And when you build it, make sure that on the spawning platform side, you actually make this ring 2 blocks wide instead of just 1, because it can happen that enemies accidentally bug through this ring and still fall down. However, if you make it 2 blocks wide, then you prevent that from happening. On the back side of the ring, on the other side of the drop hole, you're now going to place down 2 beds. This is to actually lure the enemies into the hole. However, unfortunately, there is still one more problem, and that is that the big Ravagers can actually climb out of the whole contraption, and we don't want that. So, the way we prevent this is that we want to place a lava trap over the drop hole so that when the Ravagers try to get out, they're going to get stuck in the lava and quickly die. The way we do this is actually very simple. First off, add a second layer of blocks on top of the ring on the back side around the hole. Then place 4 signs against the bottom side of the ring on the back, and then another 4 signs like I show right here, a bit higher on the front part of the hole. Over these signs, you now want to make another row of blocks, and then you're going to fill up the little gap on the back with a lava bucket. The signs should now prevent the lava from flowing down. However, when the Ravager walks into this, they will get stuck with their head in the lava and take a lot of damage, but they can never climb out because there is the bow of blocks above it. And because we placed the lava 2 blocks high, that means none of the other enemies can accidentally get caught in it. Also here, the last step would be to spawn-proof this whole area in a way that the entire surface of the surrounding rings also needs to be covered with something that prevents enemy spawns. Either carpets, or specifically around the lava, go for buttons instead so they don't accidentally catch on fire. Just no matter what you do, make sure that absolutely every block except the spawning area in the middle is covered with something that prevents enemy spawns. But okay. Now that we have the spawning platform for the bad guys done, we of course also need to place the villager. To do that, go to the side of your drop cube and build a tower of 6 temporary blocks against it. On top of this tower, you're then going to place a working station. Which one doesn't really matter, I'm just going to take a barrel as an example here. And then around this barrel, you want to make a sort of containment capsule that is 2 blocks high so that the villager can fit right on top. Now, when it comes to getting the villager actually into here, that's surprisingly easier than you might think, because what you can do is just build a staircase out of temporary blocks. If you park the villager boat on a temporary surface like I showed in the beginning of the video, then all you gotta do is break the boat, and because we made sure to take an unoccupied villager, he should now automatically pathfind to the working station to pick up his job. And as you see right here, now that he is successfully in his trap, the only thing we gotta do is close the whole thing on top. Just very important with this step, you gotta make sure to also spawn-proof the top surface of this villager cell. You can either do this by placing buttons or carpets on top, or really use any type of other block that mobs can't spawn on. But okay, now the farm is technically done. There's only one little step left, but it is very important because this is what's gonna keep us safe from VEX attacks. Let's check it out. First of all, what you want to do is open up these blocks right here. You now want to go and place down a boat over this loot chest. Then sit inside of the boat and make sure that it is aligning with the chest so it doesn't stick out. You can then go and close up these blocks again. Repeat this now for the chests on all the other sides. Now, around the outside of our tower, to all 4 sides, you want to add little 2x2 platforms like this. On top of each and every one of those platforms, you then also want to place a boat. On the 4 edges, remove 1 block out of the corner of the tower to turn these spots into 2x2 platforms as well, onto which you're then going to place even more boats. This way, we have the tower surrounded by 8 boats now. Also here then, repeat the process 2 more times so that we have 3 layers of quote-unquote boat rings around the tower. Now, why are we doing this? Well, it's actually pretty simple. If an evoker ever ends up spawning Vexes, then yes, they can phase through blocks, but they're still gonna get stuck in the boats whenever they come too close. And the best thing is, Vexes spawned by evokers will automatically start taking damage over time after a little while. Just wait until they're all gone. But now, before you can actually use the farm, you still need a couple of things. First of all, you of course need an ominous bottle that you can drink to start the raid in the first place. Ideally, you want to have an ominous bottle with a high level because that means the raid will be stronger and the enemies have a higher chance of getting enchanted items. The second thing you really want to have for this would be a sword with a looting 3 enchantment. Of course, you can also add other enchantments if you like, but especially looting 3 will give you so many more items. Lastly, and this is something that a lot of players miss I think, to get the best drops out of this, you want to make sure to set your game difficulty to hard. And now also check out my ominous bottle farm right here to get all the bad omens that you will need to run this raid farm. See you next time, and until then, craft well.